I've decided to start doing more of quality over quantity on the channel. So even with breakdowns, up until I feel like there's like a heavy demand, I'm going to focus mainly on the main card. So from now on, unless the prelims that like unless there are special fights, on the prelims, I think I'm going to just start breaking down main cards. Um, I think that's a little bit better until there's a demand. I mean, I feel like I'm overworking myself, and I don't know. I think I'll wait up until there's a demand, and then that's when I think I will be doing a little bit more of the entire card, right? So Diego Lopez versus Gene Silva. This is going to be one of those interesting fights because I feel like after the fighting nerds lost, I'm 100% confident a lot of people are going to be like, okay, Gene Silva is going to lose, right? I've been one of the few people who have been very critical of the fighting nerds, and a lot of people were calling me a hater, right? But before I go even further, I'm picking Gene Silva. My subscribers are also picking Gene Silva, and I'll explain why, right? So back to what I was saying. A lot of people were high on the fighting nerds. I was not one of those people. I've long said that I felt like people like Caio Baralho is not particularly great. He's decent everywhere, but he's not good anywhere. That's my opinion. Maybe I was a little bit wrong because his performance against Nasruddin Imavov was kind of commendable to some extent. Largely because I would have expected Imavov to actually run through Caio Baralho, but he didn't. So I guess that deserves some level of respect from me because I mean Israel Adesanya couldn't even get to the final round against Nasruddin Imavov. So clearly there's some level of skill as far as it relates to Caio Baralho. But obviously he was mixing up the wrestling, so probably that gave him a bit of an not an advantage, but it allowed him to actually stay in the fight for as long as he did. But I think the fight played out how I expected it to play out. So I've been saying that I don't think Caio Baralho is that particularly good. He's good, but I don't think he's championship material. I think Carlos Prates is talented, but I think his lifestyle is what's going to prevent him from becoming a champion. You can't smoke and compete at the highest level. I think it's delusion that he believes that, and that's why he lost to Ian Gary. I think Carlos Prates is really talented, but I don't feel like he's taking his career as seriously as he should, which is going to prevent him from getting where he's supposed to go. Um, Mauricio Rufy, I called it. I felt like he struggled against James Lontop. I even predicted that James Lontop is going to give him problems, and he actually did. And a lot of people were high on this guy, and they were like, I remember, and I regret changing my pick because initially I had picked Benoit Saint Denis when they were first scheduled to fight. I initially picked Benoit Saint Denis, but for some reason I changed my pick and I went with what's his name, um, Mauricio Rufy. Right, sucks, but I mean it is what it is. I've never been high on Mauricio Rufy, right? So the point that I'm trying to make is, despite all of this, and I've been very vocal before they even lost. I'm not saying this now all because they've lost. Like I've been saying this when they were still hot, when none of them had lost. I've been saying that I feel like the only talented fighting nerd is Gene Silva. I feel like Gene Silva is the closest thing to Ilya Tuporia at this point, at featherweight. I think outside of Movsar Evloev, personally, I don't think there's anyone who beats Gene Silva, and that's my honest opinion, right? So number one, I think Gene Silva is going to beat Diego Lopez. I think Gene Silva is more well rounded. I don't feel like Diego Lopez is that talented, to be honest. I think he's decent, but he's not that talented, in my opinion. I could be wrong. I guess we'll just have to see when the fight actually happens. But I've been very critical of Diego Lopez from the beginning. I feel like he's gotten favorable matchups. I mean, obviously the Movzaev Loev performance was impressive, but ever since I feel like he's gotten favorable matchups, struggling to finish Dan Ige on 1 day's notice is not good in hindsight after looking at what Patricio Pitbull did to Dan Ige. It wasn't like a domination, but if a 38-year-old can do that to Dan Ige, then, I mean, someone who is exceptional should have been able to finish him, right? But in no way am I saying he's not good. I just don't think he's good enough to actually become a champion, especially in an era where Movzaev Loev and Gene Silva are in existence and at the top of the division, right? So for me personally, I feel like Gene Silva is going to be technically better on the feet. I feel like Diego Lopez has sloppy striking. Um, on the ground, I think obviously Movzaev Loev is going to be bad. Not Movza. Diego Lopez is going to be better. That performance against Evloev was very, very, very interesting, and deserves a lot of respect. So, let's actually get to the breakdown of the breakdowns. I think I have been breaking it down, but that sounds that sounds crazy. So as far as reach, Diego Lopez is going to have a decent reach advantage, a 3.5 inch reach advantage. I think that's going to be very, very key. But he had a reach advantage against Alexander Volkanovski, and that did not help him. I think as far as finishing ability, both of them are pretty good at finishing fights. Um, Diego Lopez has a an 85% finishing rate, while Gene Silva has a 94% finishing rate, which is pretty decent. Gene Silva, I would give the power advantage to Gene Silva. I think he is more of a he has that knockout ability more than Diego Lopez does. I think the only people that Diego Lopez knocks out are lower ranked people. But I mean, so far, Gene Silva has not fought anyone who's as highly ranked as Diego Lopez is. But once again, I mean, look at the Diego Lopez's rise to the top. He beat he beat what's his name, Brian Ortega for a title shot. Before that, he fought what's his name, Dan Ige. Before that, he fought who did he fight? I don't feel like he's been fighting that elite level competition. People are talking about Diego Lopez like he's this veteran in the UFC who has been like making his mark for all this time. So I'm not sold on that, to be honest. So as far as striking goes, I think Gene Silva is going to be a little bit more, a lot more active. I think combined with the power, he's going to have an advantage. Defensively, I don't think both of them are particularly exceptional, but I feel like Gene Silva is more technically better. So I will give him the advantage as far as the striking goes. I feel like on the feet, Gene Silva is going to be better. I think Diego Lopez might need to wrestle in order to succeed, but I feel like wrestling wise, I might lean a little bit towards Gene Silva, to be honest. Submission wise, definitely Diego Lopez is better, but wrestling, I don't know, man. I don't feel like Diego Lopez is good at wrestling. I just think he's good at jiu-jitsu, but not necessarily wrestling. So yeah, my subscribers and I officially pick well, what's his name? Gene Silva. So yeah, that concludes my breakdown. I love and appreciate all of you. Until next time, deuces.